GII, which is page 6 of 13. This is, I don't know what draft we're on now, but it seems like
We ran out of letters and numbers. And
ran out of ink, didn't we? Thank you for being here, Brad. Appreciate it. So we talked last time that the lawyers really were adamant that we avoid anything that's discussed net income, net revenue, profits, anything like that. So we've dodged all of that to be able to keep it tax exempt. As you'll recall, we issued tax exempt bonds to build the facility, and we've issued requests for proposals, and Heyday was selected. And so now we're trying to hammer out the details in the contract. So what we're doing in section II of G, we get down to the management fees. And so the latest draft talks about a 4% management fee, and then we're going into the performance management, which if they hit the gross revenue goals, they would get, at $1.5 million, they will get a 5% of the total gross revenues. So the question was asked last time, how much are we paying Heyday? Well, I can tell you for sure we're paying them 5% if they hit of gross, which we think is going to be in the neighborhood of $1.7 million, conservatively, all right? Trey, you can correct me if you think it's 5 million, but conservatively, based upon the demographics that Trey has studied, or Tracy has studied, they think we can comfortably hit about $1.7 million, somewhere in there. I think, personally, I think they're going to be pleasantly surprised, but let's keep it conservative so you guys have plenty of knowledge to make the decision on the contract. So they get 5%, and then they will get 5% if they get to the goals, the revenue goals. And you can see the chart there. If they get to $2 million, $2,001, or up to $3 million, they get 10% of the gross revenues. If they get to $3,001, then they get 12% between that and 3.6 million. And then if we really blow it out and they get, the business creates $3.6 million, then they would get 15%. So we've got targets there to encourage them to make it profitable. And with their expertise, I think we're going to be in great shape and attract a bunch of visitors. And I think you're all going to be really pleased. So if you have any questions, like I said, I can call the bond lawyer if you have any hesitation on that. But so at 1.7, you're going to be looking at, I think it's around 157,000. I think I said 5%. It's 4% now in this draft. So we're going to be between 147 and about 162 compensation, okay? And that's assuming that we hit those revenue goals.
Not too shabby.
Yeah. You want to let the Heyday crew
Absolutely.
talk about what their expectations are, and if they're excited after I've put them through all this laundry.
Yeah, I was looking back, again, I'm Trey Bates, I'm the owner and president of Heyday Entertainment CEO, and I've got my wife Tracy Reagan, who assists Tracy in operations. Actually, our chief operations officer is back at the store today, we have our first big bike night at our Norman store, so he's managing that. And then I have Kevin Davenport, who manages all of our facilities, heavily involved in making sure the stores operate properly from a facility standpoint. So any questions that you might have regarding the facility itself and how that runs, he can answer. So between Tracy, Reagan, and me, I think we can shoot pretty much any answers out to me. I was actually looking back, Steve, and we started this almost 2 years ago.
Right.
Initially. The original draft of the operating agreements, I think, started circulating about a year ago. And we've, finally gotten to the point where quite literally we're, 3-4 months from opening, and we've got to start moving on licensing. We've already moved forward with hiring a general manager actually for this location. Marketing is gearing up, and our sales team is also starting to field calls to try to put together events for as soon as we open. So it's become less of us just being part of the team, which we have been, and appreciate Steve and staff, the way that we've worked together since the project kicked off. But we're at the point now where we need an agreement, because we need to be out there, signing documents, making sure we're ready to open when the store's ready to open. So this has kind of gotten to that point. Steve alluded to the math that we put together when we generate the budgets, and Tracy and I spent a lot of time working through not only the demographics of Seminole itself, but comparing it to the other stores that we have. We have one in Denison, Texas, of course the one in Norman, and then one in Oklahoma City. The two in the Norman store and the Denison location are very comparable, just in terms of overall offerings. So we worked through the demographics, came up with a rough number of visits that we anticipate on I'm going to call it conservative. It is conservative, but it's also not just lay down either. We're going to have to work hard to get to these numbers, but I'm not trying to throw out numbers that I think we don't have to do anything to achieve, or that they're pie in the sky. So we're basically looking at roughly 50,000 visits as a start, and each spend, so each person when they visit would have to spend $34. So actually, is that number right, Tracy?
34.93.
Okay, so almost $35.
Hey.
To be exact, $34.93.
Not that we haven't spent any time on the pennies.
So, that means every man, woman, and child that would walk in the door would spend $35. It's not going to happen. Some are going to spend a lot more. Some are obviously not going to spend as much. But at the end of the day, that average is a solid average. Again, I'm going to say in the mid-range of what we have experienced in our other locations. And I didn't get to that number at first. We backed into it looking at the population of Seminole, the surrounding areas. We factored in increases that we thought we could get versus our other locations due to the proximity of the high school and the park across the street. And actually, we're going to be, I think, doing some interesting things on the food and beverage side too. So we factored all the differences that we could. And interestingly enough, Tracy was looking at the numbers right before we left. She goes, how did you get to that number? Because it's almost exactly what we've been doing in the other stores on the average per visit basis. And I said, well, I was just working the numbers backwards. So I feel really good about the average spend. But again, recognize that means that we're going to have approximately 50,000 visitors. So, the population of Seminoles, 7,800, give or take. So that means every man, woman, and child in Seminole has to come and see us 6 times a year. Now, I know, again, they're not going to do that, but we're going to be bringing in a lot of visitors. Hey, if they do, we get them coming back 6 times plus everything else, then we'll be at the top end. Right? I'm saying a lot to say that a lot of work went into trying to come up with reasonable budgets. Reasonable budgets being budgets that were attainable but not impossible to achieve. And then built in management fee based upon us being able to cover our overhead, which in P&L that I provided to the staff, we included no cost in the actual budget for any of the four of us or any of the other people that are in part of the corporate. So when you look at the P&L, that's what it takes to run an entertainment center on site. So basically, we're looking at a 5% reimbursement for our overhead, which that does cover the staff in the main corporate office. And then based upon how we perform, a additional sliding scale, basically profit for paid executives. And that's the way we structured it. So,
It's the other P word, performance.
performance. That's right. So,
So if I could direct your attention to page 4, and it will be under D, VI, or 6, where we talk about the annual plan and budget, okay? I know this was one of your questions, so let's talk that through a little bit. So at the bottom of the first paragraph, the annual plan and budget shall contain line item expenses, revenues, and monthly and annual budget details, including but not limited to proposed rate changes and charges for the various elements. So you guys and your staff are going to be able to go through the budget. We'll be able to visit with them and question, so what are we doing about that? And then, well, I had it and I didn't highlight it. Where's our monthly discussion, Trey?
well, the discussion of monthly budget is contained in a couple of different sections. You know, we provide an annual budget, and then in
Okay.
I thought it was right there. Oh, there, well, I just read it, didn't I? Yeah, and monthly annual budget details. Monthly and annual budget details. So you'll have access to that. Trey's going to be able to provide monthly reports, so we'll be able to keep a handle on what's going on. One of my fears is that we actually do super, and our budget says, hey, we're going to have food cost of blank, and we have 5 regional tournaments out there, and all of a sudden our food cost goes jumping. You know, we're going to need to be able to understand how are we compensating on the revenue side. And I know these guys are fantastic at it. So, but bottom line is you're going to get a monthly report.
How are we going to work this in with our annual or our fiscal year?
I'm not going to tell you, in fact, Sharon's not here, but we have beat it to death. And there's just kind of no way to do that comfortably. It's going to be a challenge. I'm not going to paint it any other way. It's going to be a challenge. But the good news is the Utilities Authority doesn't hold very much. There's not a lot of activity that's happening. So just about any activity that's going on in the Utilities Authority will have to do with this facility. So as we do budgets and get things put into that, it won't be hard to interpret. If you'll recall, we moved all of the sewer plant, all of the other things out of the Utilities Authority into the Municipal Authority. So this, in all fairness, this is acting as much as a recreational authority as it is a utilities authority.
So
just
what,
to add on real quick, too, I'm sorry, let me cut you. the financial oversight is extensive. Not only is there a required 20 calendar day preparation of monthly P&Ls that Steve alluded to, but there's also an extensive budgeting process that occurs 90 days prior to the end of the year. So you prospectively approve a budget. If we're off the budget, you're going to be seeing that within 20 days of close of each calendar month. And then Steve and I spent quite a bit of time going back and forth on trying to make sure that the management fees were paid consistently with the agreement. Originally, we had language in there that talked about paying that management fee monthly. We ultimately agreed to do that semi-annually so that, we wouldn't have some fluctuation. If we have a really great month, and then the management fee gets paid within the next month, it's not so good. So, that creates an imbalance. So the intent was to create accountability on our side in terms of monthly P&Ls and establishing a process whereby you all approve the budget well in advance in the beginning of each fiscal year, and then we only true up on what we would earn once every 6 months. So I don't know if that helps to add.
It does.
Kind of that context.
Do you have a question, Ben?
Yeah. And you'll have to, forgive me because I don't really quite understand, how the annual plan and budget work for this very first year out of the gate. So I know that you'll have expenses and things to work from after the first year, but what do we go off of for the first year? Can you just estimate it and submit something to us, or?
Educated estimate, which is called a P&L, the profit. Some people might call it a pro forma. So he's projecting, he's taking the data that he's got from other stores, factoring in the demographic, and doing an educated estimate of what it's going to look like in terms of budgeting.
And do we have that? Or did I miss that?
We're not ready to it's not ready to fly yet, but you will have approval of it before it goes into effect.
The basis under which the P&L is based is again on those numbers that I talked about a second ago, an average spend and a total visit count based upon averages, and then making some adjustments for specifically identifiable variances like the sports opportunity, the high school, some food and beverage adjustments. But we've been able to generate a top line revenue estimate that Steve mentioned, and then from that, we know what our food costs are, we know what our labor costs are, and we've estimated general overhead expenses, again, which are totally focused on just the store, so there's not going to be anything put in there that isn't real. And we'll provide, that final budget for you guys to review, but it will, it'll show either a slight profit or break even as coming out of the chute.
So this says we'll get that no later than October 1st, that we're looking at opening when?
September 1, so yeah, we'll have it.
Because it's just estimates, right? It's just
I'm sorry?
It's just all guesstimates at this point.
Well, they're guesstimates, but they're not uneducated guesstimates. They are, again, I know I'm beating the horse, but they're based upon, actual results from running these stores for multiple years. I've given an initial round of budgets to Steve to review, and I guess once everything's kind of fleshed out, then we'll be ready to, have you all approve them. But we won't be operating without a budget.
Okay, that's good. Because one of my concerns, I think, during the council meeting, and just kind of looked in here is, and maybe it's just the way that the manager fee is tiered, that I was just looking for something that made me feel a little bit better about cost containment. And is that, would you agree that that's kind of how the fee is set up? Is that the more money you save, that you will actually receive in that fee? Or is that, because what I understood in the meeting, I was confused that it kind of came off of the gross and not really considering the expenditures. So help me understand.
Okay. Well, again, you're absolutely right. The management fee is based upon our ability to generate, I say our ability, when I say our, it's all of us, right? The ability to generate revenue in the facility. The reality of it is that, we know we can generate profit if we can generate the business. Where it gets hard is if the revenue isn't there to support the overhead structure that it takes to run one of these facilities. I was telling Steve the other day, it's like, everybody has an opinion about these entertainment centers because they're relatively simple to understand, right? I mean, it's selling things like arcades and bowling lanes and food and beverage, but it's complicated running one of these facilities, really complicated. So for us to be able to generate a profit for the city, we need to make sure that we can generate the revenue necessary to support the operation. So our structure, and again, I'm not a bond lawyer, obviously, but my understanding is it can't be based upon the net. So it has to be based upon the top line number. So we built into a budget, a preliminary budget that you guys have, Steve's staff has, the revenue numbers that we think that we can produce to support the operation. And that's what we're going on the hook for. And you guys will get the opportunity to accept or reject that budget.
So monthly, we'll be able to see like what that cost looks like versus what you brought in.
Absolutely.
We'll get to see that monthly. And
And
if we have an issue with it, like if we see like we lost, or we didn't get any money that month because costs were high for whatever reason, what do we do? Like
Well,
is there something in here that gives us any kind of recourse?
Obviously, our responsibility is to meet that budget. If we fail to meet the budget and don't have a good reason that is justifiable, that makes sense, then you can terminate the agreement.
So terminate clause is the only thing, okay.
So you're basing your budget up right now up at 1.7, is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We're basing it on the 1.7, but we're also, again, not just pulling that out.
Right, no, I heard it, no, I understand what you're saying, yeah, but, so you're gonna base it off the first time, you're gonna base off 1.7, and then if we go up, then you'll be able to base off, okay.
Yeah.
Just like we do here,
Yeah.
the same thing.
So what are, just to kind of help her get there. So let's just say that we missed the food expense because all of the baseball teams are coming straight across the street, and the expense of that food goes up. Would you be comfortable in making mid-year adjustments to the overall budget so that they have a better picture for what do you think we're going to end up with at the end of the year? Is that going to be 5 million?
Yeah, well,
Because-
I don't know that the agreement specifically contemplated mid-year budget adjustments, but at the end of the day, budgets are budgets, right? And I can guarantee you one thing, we will not do exactly what is on that budget.
Right.
It is going to be different. Now, I think the point that you make is that revenues are going to be higher or lower, and the costs are going to be higher or lower, and what our job is going to be is to make sure that they're consistent. In other words, if our revenues are higher, then the cost as a percentage of revenue should be lower.
Mm-hmm.
That's our job.
Mm-hmm.
If revenues are higher and our costs are higher, then you guys are going to say, what are you guys doing? How are you running this operation? And that's going to be, I can tell you that's not going to happen, but I mean, if it did, then that would be a point where you'd say, okay, this isn't working, and we would figure out.
I think your
what
first
makes
question
sense.
would be, what am I doing wrong? Well, they got to
Yeah.
correct it now, because everything that you do wrong that ends up in a negative situation is just going to affect the fact that we can terminate your agreement. So I don't see that if you're off for a month, you're going to correct it the next month, you're going to do something immediately, because you can't let that drag on, obviously, in a restaurant situation especially, but it's going to be the same here. But I had a concern, how long does it take you guys to account for a P&L? So in other words, your last day of the month is the 30th. What's the soonest that you guys can have numbers ready and be comfortable with presenting those? Because I know I worked at Sonic and managed the store there, so that's the only knowledge I have of it. But generally, we had all invoices in by the end of the month. Within 5 days, we had a P&L created. So I don't know what your process is. And the only reason I ask is, I think maybe this is part of Dana's concern or something, but I'm concerned that we get to the 20th of the month, we don't see your budget, it's surpassed our city council meeting, which is the second Tuesday of every month. So it's already surpassed that. We either have to have a special meeting, or we have to wait for the second Tuesday of the next month to address the issue. And so we're behind the eight ball, even though we trust that you guys are correcting it. For us to know that, I think I would just rather be ahead of the eight ball and know that, hey, just in case you guys need to know that this is what happened, we've already corrected it, versus finding this out on the tail end. Does that make sense? So I just didn't know how long it took to actually create a P&L. So,
Well, the agreement has always contemplated 20 days. I mean, practically speaking, is it possible to have a P&L? I mean, frankly, we do a set of metrics every week. I mean, we're looking at food costs, labor costs. Obviously can't, drill down into how much utility bills are on a weekly basis, but every one of our controllable, what I call controllable costs, liquor costs, food costs, labor, and revenue are monitored weekly.
yeah, you have to.
Yeah, and I would, 20 days is kind of a safe number. We should be able to have a P&L definitely by that date, and I'm sure that's why the agreement contemplates it. But the reality of it is, there are going to be swings. Some months it's going to be like, how the heck did we do so well? There's going to be some cost that didn't come in, or there's going to be some, anomaly because we had the big event at the ballpark and it really drove up revenue that week or that month. And then the next month's going to be a little bit slower. So you do have to kind of look at these over a period of time. So again, we'll work with you and give you any set of numbers that you want. Tracy has spent a lot of time working with our point of sale system to make sure that our management team has the most current information that I think anybody has to run their business by.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, going forward, the reality of it is, we're going to be looking at things over a period of 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
And so I think when I come, whoever Steve, staff is bringing you financial statements, and there's going to be a problem, it's not going to be because of 1 month. It's going to be because you're seeing a trend and you need something addressed.
Yeah.
And the budget's not being met. So I wouldn't get too hung up on the 20th, but I think it's reasonable, right?
Yeah, I was just curious, because I know, there's already a meeting scheduled, so if there's anything to cover, it'd just be nice to do it then versus having to call a special meeting after the 20th for an issue that we need to address now. We need a budget revision, we need to do this, we need to do that, we need it quickly. I was just trying to make way for
Well,
something to happen.
if something strange happened, he would know and be able to tell us before the meeting, but as far as spotting anything that's going wrong, you're not going to be able to really see that in 1 month. I mean, you could add a month in February where you think you'd be busier because it's cold, and then we had a nice February and everybody was outside instead.
Or you have an ice storm and all of a sudden you lose a Saturday.
Yes.
Like that happened to us too,
So, yeah, it's 1 month isn't going to tell a story like that. And I mean, I think what I'm thinking, what we're saying, the way this was going to work like any other business, is you're going to be looking at percentages more than you are the totals for the most part, because your percentages should all be in line. And like he said, if your expenses are going up, then your revenues are obviously going up. And if they're not, then there's the problem.
There you go.
I mean, it's not like our city sales tax where we only have a certain amount, and if our expenses go up, we're like, whoa, we can't cover this. It's a different situation, with a business like this, so.
Yeah, just making sure it wasn't something like what the wellness center is, where there was an issue, we need to slide money for some reason. So there's not going to be an issue of that sort, hopefully not, that we have to do anything like that,
We'll know. We'll know when if it ever happens, we'll know.
Okay.
So, yeah, just to restate kind of what we did last time, we deposit 3 months of operating expense, and that gets replenished every month. So they're bringing in revenues, they're making the deposits. So it should be said that we're going to keep that operations account whole.
Gotcha.
Hopefully through all the revenue that's coming in. So.
And to be clear though, from that, when you said they're making deposits, but they're consistently also going to be making withdrawals for any costs that they have.
Yes.
right? And I did see something in here that says reimbursement of any out-of-pocket operating expenses. We'll pay that, as well, but what would that be if it's not just billing it directly to the operating account?
Well, there could be so between our stores, we'll have let's say we have an account, a credit card, say that we have a corporate card, for example. And we'll use that corporate card to manage our purchases of certain items that we just have set up with like our redemption. So that money would come out of our companies, that would be actually reimbursed through the company because you all Seminoles, a Seminole wouldn't be paying Redemption Plus directly. That would be coming out of the corporate card and you have to reimburse the corporate card. So
almost
there's
like
just, from an accounting standpoint, there's going to be some.
Kind of like a shared services type thing,
Absolutely.
where you have your corporate costs and you have to share them among all your facilities.
Yeah.
And in addition to any items you may be paying for directly out of your corporate office for items for.
Yes.
So
And
those
again,
would-
that's to the benefit of the city because, well, obviously, we're able to pool our resources and do better deals. And if we had individual accounts set up for every single little item that we need to buy for this Seminole.
Or if they run out of cheese, need to go buy some at Walmart. Reimburse you for that.
So
We take the credit, we take the debit card, and we run out of it.
It just happens, I
So-
don't know.
Are you doing your financial statements on actual monthly or on like a 4-week period type
We
thing?
do monthly.
You do
We
monthly.
don't do a rolling forward. I know some stores do that, but we just always manage it monthly.
I think the other question that I had to do was, not only do I feel like we're responsible for the public dollar, but also to like public perception and satisfaction with services, right? So I was looked through it previously and didn't see any like metrics or anything tied to like customer satisfaction. Like I know we're talking about percentages and dollar amounts and gross revenue and things like that, but the only thing that we came up with, I think, during that meeting was it mentions house rules and standards of service. Is that what, like any customer service issues would be handled in those policies that you already have in place?
Yes. And, obviously, there was a selection process that was put in place. I'm very proud, and I'm just not going to say this, but it's true, of our product and our reputation. And so we've got a standard set of operating procedures that we're going to, strive to, improve on and exceed every single day here. Again, I always kind of think of the financial statements as a scorecard because at the end of the day, if you're not providing the service at an adequate or even better level, then you're not going to be able to grow your revenue. You're not going to be able to generate the returns that we're on the hook for. So, I mean, that also plays up some part of it. At the end of the day, we've got to be doing our job well.
Yeah, agreed, but also too, we hear about it from our constituents if they're not happy with anything that remotely looks like it's dealing with the city, and this is pretty popular, and I think a lot of people in the town are acutely aware because this is what they wanted, that we're responsible for everything over there, and so we'll get the calls too, is I think was my concern was, is how do we address those, and that would be with you all, with the manager directly.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
You guys have a survey system where customers can get online and do a survey, like if they've had a visit or something of that nature, like maybe that's some of the metrics maybe that you can share in meetings to say, hey, we've had.
She wants to know.
I mean, I'm more than happy to.
He does dollars, I do people.
There you go.
That's true.
Well, it is. So he referred to the weekly metrics that our team, our executive leadership team looks at every Monday at 1 o'clock. And when we look at those, we look at our cost of labor. So that's our one huge expense that we have control over. We look at our revenue because we want our revenue to increase. We track that. And we have goals every week that we're trying to make. And the third one that we look at is our Google reviews. And so if our Google reviews, and we look at it on a 3-week rolling, it's not like our average the whole time. It's a 3-week rolling average of what the Google review is. So obviously, when we first open here, we're going to be a 5-star. That's all we get is 5 stars. as that, Trey will set a goal that's realistic, maybe 4.8. And if it starts to dip below that, like the first week it dips below that, our management team is pulled in, we start looking at why, we reach out, we respond. You can go on our Google reviews, I encourage you to go on there and look at Heydays. You will see them all responded to. Yeah, every one of them. And that is what our marketing team, that is part of what you guys will be paying for, is our marketing team, when those Google reviews come in, good, bad, ugly, awesome, whatever, we respond to them. So you will have a very public, you don't have to ask us anything, you can look at Hey Seminole's reviews. The other thing that we have is on Toast, which is our POS system. It automatically, every customer that comes in, they can give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down. If you get a thumbs down, Trey, myself, Reagan, Eli, those are all the executive leaderships. Kevin doesn't get one, that's the one thing we don't harass him about. And then who your general manager is will be notified that a customer just gave a thumbs down. And that GM his management team is tasked with immediately searching out that guest and seeing if they're in the building, because we have a check number, if they pay with a credit card, we have the guest name, we've captured data.
Okay.
And it is on their management team and their employees to address that situation. And let me remind you that those will be Seminole people, hopefully, from your town. And so hopefully they're going to be doing awesome.
Thank you, that's exactly what I wanted to
Okay.
know. Thank you.
Yeah. I was just curious if there was a place we could refer them to as well, say, hey, you need to go to their website, put a review on them, tell them what happened, versus us taking the formal complaint. Not
Yeah.
that we don't want that, but I
There-
feel like if they give it to us, it may stop there for some reason. If we forget me, you need to know.
Yeah,
So
and
that's
that's a
where-
really good point. What we can do, because this is also a new partnership for us, is we can create a card that we have at the front desk that's like, you have it, give them some tools with an
Yeah.
email address that says contact at,
Absolutely.
contact at heyseminole.com, and it'll come into our marketing department. We have a customer care specialist who does sales and marketing. She's our person who does all of that, and she gets it to the right person to address it. So
Perfect.
that's what I would suggest just off the top of my head. But those are the kinds of things that we will have to be thinking about, which is why we need the agreement, so we can, legally say we represent you guys.
This is why you were sought out, because we need your help doing that.
I'm gonna add one more thing too. Because I'm the revenue guy, like she said. So I'm responsible for our group sales and frankly, birthday parties fall under this. And we actually have a formal follow-up process with every single event that we have, where we reach out to the point of contact and try to get all the good, bad, and different information we can. And most of the time, it's like perfect scores. I mean, I love perfect scores, but I also love it when we find out that there's something we could have done better.
Yeah.
So we actually aggressively look for that feedback.
Hey, Steve, when they're speaking about emails and comments and things such as that, since this is owned by a public entity, are there going to be any issues with any like open meetings or open records acts or anything that they might need to be aware of?
No, the facility is ours. The manager is doing their management things. So I don't foresee, if there was an open records request, we're going to try to comply. I mean,
Okay.
we're not trying to, certainly not going to try to hide anything over an entertainment center. It's pretty open. Now, if it deals with disclosure of a minor's name, if they kick out a 12-year-old for trying to hurt a machine or something, and they see it on Facebook, we're not going to get into the minors.
I was just curious if there's any records, because
No.
written records that
The
may come across them.
the budgets that you approve, yes.
Okay.
All of that will be. Mr. Rossman Scott, he's wondering about maybe getting a pickleball tournament comped. He loves to play pickleball and
Take care of that.
No.
go to Norman Store.
I'll go to the North Store, but it ain't gonna be playing no pickleball.
I think he's more concerned with the 3-pound volleyball, because that's all he can really lift.
Oh, yeah. Hey.
No, actually, I'm a man, I use the 15-pound. It gets down farther and hits it harder.
Mayor, I just had one more question, and I think that's all I had from my notes. And this is for Brad. Hi, Brad. The hold harmless, the indemnify the manager, the language in there, is that typical? Because it lists its officers and agents. I understand employees and like owners of the business, but what does officers and agents mean? Seems like
It'd be
it's,
like the corporate officers, are you talking about for the city?
well, it
Which
just,
one, which
page
particular-
8, number 5, the hold harmless.
Page number 5.
I just didn't know if that was typical, because it does look like we're covering a lot.
Yeah, so one of the things that we're gonna have to change on this, it's a good catch, I think we had this on the last one, I don't know if it made it through. We're gonna have to strike the word indemnify from number 5. The Municipal League and the Oklahoma Municipal Insurance Group has recommended that no cities or municipalities, public political subdivisions can do that, because what that ends up doing in the event of any type of litigation, it binds future councils, future authorities, and we can't do that because we're only good for one budget to the next. So it could bind future bodies. So the whole harmless is fine, the whole provision, we just need to strike the authorities shall, well, really just, it should be just release and hold harmless. And I can make that adjustment if we need to. I don't think it's a big deal, but we're just not going to be able to indemnify. And if you know what that means that, we have to pay and defend you and pay to defend you and all of that. I think you'll probably have your own insurance anyway that probably covers that, if I'm correct. We actually struck that. I can't think of if it was this one.
It was one of the
It was one of the
37
We had to
drafts.
strike that on the last one we did, but I can make a couple of pen and ink changes if there's going to be
Page
any
five.
issues with it.
My apologies, that was in an earlier draft and we just did not get it there. So,
Okay, yeah. On page 5, Brad,
Yes.
under E, it does say will fully protect any authority and their officers, and it lists all of those again, and claims. So that-
Page 5, you said?
Mhm.
Okay.
we're still there. She's still there.
Oh, okay. I'm looking
Oh, that's
at
them, not us.
Paragraph 5?
Yeah, that's on down.
Where are you at?
Page 5, under E, insurance, because he was,
Yeah, that's on the manager's responsibility, which is
oh,
down.
okay, that's their responsibility, then not ours.
This is the one you call, one of their authorities' responsibility.
Okay, got it.
Okay. So, let's go back to, if you're through with those, let's go back to GIII, which is page 6 and 7 particularly. Did you take my 7? Page 7. Here's another copy. Full copy and the amended. All right, so now we're going to page 7. Yeah, that's the new proposed language. Yep, so on the top of page 7 of 13, you'll see the end of the chart, and then the authority agrees to pay manager performance management. So beside you should have a single page that has GII. So we have beat this thing to death, and we think we've come up with some language that works. And what we're trying to do is bridge the gap between our start date of September 1st and the fiscal year for the city or the authority, which is June 1st to July, right?
July 1st to June.
Yep. 30th. June 30, yeah. So ends our year. June 30 ends our year, right? So what we're trying to do is get everything reconciled from our start date, try to get it into a calendar year that we're paying a performance management fee. So what that means is, and the reason that it's important is because November and December in this business is really good, right? So if we go in September 1 and go through December 30, rather than on another calendar year, we're going to be paying a performance fee that's, I'm going to say, less than accurate. If you're not with me, don't.
I'm not with you. I don't
Okay.
understand that.
If we start September 1st, that's the opening date, okay? And they have achieved a big piece of this. If we divide 1.5 million by 12, that's the monthly performance that we're expecting, or that gets them a bonus. Excuse me, that's a bad term.
You did it again.
Sorry.
You did it again.
Performance fee.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
Woo. I'm getting rum-dum at this point after all the drafts, but, so, performance fee would be achieved at basically 1/12 every month, okay? But if we started in September and we start seeing big numbers in November and December, rather than an annualized deal, because those are big months, then it wouldn't particularly be accurate.
I'm following you. No, I'm following
Okay,
you.
all right.
I'm
Thank
following
you.
you. I get
Thank
you.
you for those of you
I
that
get
are
you.
nodding. All right, so what this new language attempts to address is exactly that. So we're proposing that 15th, after initial 12-month period, managers shall be eligible to earn performance management fee. So the 12-month period would end, and then they become eligible. So now we've got something to go from, all right? The performance management fee shall be calculated and payable semi-annually rather than monthly, each 6-month period ending June 30 and December 31 on each calendar based upon the facility's actual financial performance for the applicable period compared against the approved budget. Good? All right.
Yeah.
So then we're going to pay them within 30 days. If the initial performance management fee period begins during the semi-annual period, which it will, it shall cover the period beginning the first day after the expiration of the initial management fee period and ending the next June 30 or December 31st. So what this does is it gets us aligned to that calendar year so that it's fair to them, it's fair to us. So if you choose to make a motion to approve the contract, you would make it with the adjusted language that the staff will make on the indemnify, and to draw in the new language on GII, or G3, and that's it.
I have one other question, since we were looking at that. Let's go backwards. Is everybody okay with where we're at on that? So I can move on to something real quick.
Wait, Corey, just to be clear, this new GII replaces this one.
Yes.
Okay. Does this one doesn't mention the out-of-pocket operating expenses, or am I just not?
Is there one more of those? I don't have it.
Yeah, right, here you go. No, it was sitting right here. Steve put them out here. Listen, buddy. I know where you live. You got a pretty new truck.
Anybody else need one?
You got white.
Yeah, it doesn't even mention which is out of pocket, and it doesn't mention the overhead reimbursement fee.
It's not the entire thing. I think it's just this section here, this is just the bottom section.
So that one,
Or wait, I'm on the wrong page. Let me get to the right page.
Corey, is that what it's saying at the bottom? We're gonna probate this 4 months? Is that what it's saying on the bottom?
See, there's 1, 2, and then
Their
3.
first 4 months
Says how
will be
it's gonna be
prorated?
paid.
Okay.
So that's all it's replacing is this section here.
Oh,
Right.
Everything else.
it says right here.
Oh, so this also,
Yeah, it's just the section 3 is all that's replacing.
but there's some language in here that's not in here.
Yeah.
And the only reason I caught my eye is because I have underlined the out-of-pocket, but that's not in here.
We should partake in Should I show you this little detail oriented? I think that's what we need.
I missed my page 7.
They need
Just basically the one, just that one sentence. Yeah, just the reimbursement of any out-of-pocket.
So that one sentence is just not in here, and that's the
See no
only
more
thing.
wheelchair.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Pick him up every morning. Oh, I guess he lives in back there, he's in a wheelchair. That man comes and picks him up every morning.
Yeah, it's just the one sentence.
I don't know too many of them.
Okay. Yep. So what we're talking about is the reimbursement part of that paragraph will be added. Yes, it will be added at the bottom of that first paragraph, right? So reimbursement of out-of-pocket expenses, of operating expenses, as well as the overhead reimbursement will be paid no later than the 15th business day of the following month. Such expenses were incurred by the manager. For this purpose, business day means any day other than Saturday, Sunday, or any other day commercial banks in the state of Oklahoma are authorized or required by law to be closed. Okay, so that I just read would be added to the bottom of the first paragraph. Okay.
good? Okay. I just have one other question on that portion for the insurance under, I don't know if we have a copy of Exhibit B that it speaks of, but in the insurance portion, it does speak that will be listed, the authority will be listed as additional insured on all policies. I don't see anything in there unless it's on that exhibit about workers' comp. So in workers' comp, you guys need to be listed with waiver of subrogation in favor of the city or the utilities authority. Which what that does is if there's an employee that gets hurt and there's no workers' comp insurance there, technically, they can come back to our medical coverages on GL policies to get other medical coverages for that person. So, probably
They're
need to
gonna
add that.
be, those are gonna be heyday employees though, right? Not city
Yeah,
employees?
but at that point, it becomes a premises coverage on the GL policy. So if they're anybody on the premises, employee or not, there's no workers' comp coverage, or there's a discrepancy, whatever that may be, they can come back to us as a utilities authority to gain medical coverage off of our GL policy. So
If
the
they're
waiver of
negative.
subrogation just means that I won't come back to you for anything that happens to my employees. That's really all it does.
You're talking about
So-
if Heyday's insurance policy names the city as an additional insured?
That will be on the GL, correct. You can't list, I can't list the utilities authorities on a workers' comp policy because that's their specific policy.
Right.
And only covers that particular entity.
Right.
So if you add a waiver of subrogation onto the workers' comp policy, that just says that if my employee got hurt, I'll never come back to the city
Oh,
to
yeah,
gain
yeah.
any kind of monies to pay for their medical expenses. So that's left out of there. So I'm just making sure you guys have that.
Yeah, so you're talking about, so our insurance company wouldn't try to subrogate against the city for a workman's comp?
Correct.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Yeah, that, it doesn't cost them anything to do that. I'm just saying we need to add that in there.
It actually, in that additional insured sections with our insurance company, we always provide waiver of subrogation
Yeah.
on our bill.
It just
on our
doesn't,
workman's comp.
and you
So
guys
it's-
are probably used to doing that, I'm
Yeah.
sure, but it just doesn't say that in there, so I'm just making sure
Where,
that no one.
where do you want it added?
Well, I don't know what's in Exhibit B. I don't know what,
And Steve, we talked about that, I need that exhibit B just to make sure we've got, sure we do, because we carry a lot of insurance.
basically what you need to add is that the customer will also list, well, you're gonna assign a waiver of subrogation in favor of the Seminole Utilities Authority.
Okay, so add that on
Under,
E.
under
I.
I would add it under I. You'll be additional
E.
insured,
E under us.
E, yeah. So,
Yeah, it could just be right after naming the utilities authority as additional insured.
we have geeks in every field here, I guess, I'm just saying.
Okay,
Chris didn't help himself.
okay.
I had it in the chamber, but I was gonna say it.
It's just a formality, it's nothing big, they know that. It may cost you $100 maybe to add us as additional insured.
Yeah,
maybe.
probably if they went to you.
Not-
Yeah, I don't know, what any company charges to do waiver of subrogation on our.
Yeah, they won't charge for that. I'm assuming that Exhibit B was just a certificate of insurance with coverages or
I'm sure it's
something.
your standard, I'm sure it's your standard requirements that you have of every, with every party you contract with.
Yeah.
as far as the insurance requirements.
I'm sure it is, but I didn't see it in there either, that's why I was asking.
You don't need to use those if they're good. It's just a certified,
To say,
just striking.
Basically.
They got these written down, because I wrote them down, in case somebody wants to make this motion, but I don't know.
They have their insurance, we have ours. So I don't even know. But do you guys have a problem just striking that paragraph 5 in its entirety?
On which page?
It's on page 8. Yes, yeah.
Well, the thing is, I was gonna ask you about that, yeah, I feel as if we should be held harmless, but I'm also concerned about indemnifying us, not on the first part, but on indemnity related to failure of the authority to fund the operating
Operating
account.
account, yeah. So I've got the whole harmless release there for you in there, which I have no problem with. It's just the identification that we got an issue with. That's gonna be up to the authority. So basically, you're talking about if the authority were to fail to fund any shortfalls or the operating account, they would indemnify you for what? Profit loss or what?
For any expenditures we make.
Just,
So,
just reimbursable expenses. is
yeah,
what
the
you're saying.
expenditures that we would make under the agreement, and I can't imagine why it would happen, but I think that's why the language is there. If indeed the authority were to fail to fund
I
the
think we should.
business, then there should be an indemnification.
It's a pretty simple fix, reimbursable expenses. First, that's taking out losses, because that means profit. So you're just saying if the authority agrees to performance or release the manager from reimbursable for that failure to.
I didn't get that.
That one didn't call to us.
Yeah, so what we'll do is, we'll just put reimbursable expenses.
So I think that paragraph.
Right there instead of- if we use losses, that can be interpreted as profit, so I just want to make sure we clarify what we're reimbursing you for. But I think we can clarify that. I don't have a problem with that. We just need to wordsmith that a little bit. I've got an issue with it. Does that make sense? Just release the manager from costs. We can then put reimbursement costs from the failure of authority to fund the operating account. Makes sense.
Hey Brad, when you're doing that, do we also need to include in there, if we, say for instance, if we were supposed to fix a canopy that was over a door, we didn't do that, it fell on a customer, technically, that's not their fault, that's our fault. So I didn't know if that's something you need to clarify both sides, and not just monetarily, but also for.
We've got a
Injury to a
provision in there. I
customer.
think that, so we're going to be carrying casualty and everything on the structure and all of that. I think they're going to have an operating premises liability, right, policy. But if you'll look down there, the very thing, at the very bottom, under that whole harmless, it talks about structural or capital deficiencies of the facility. So
Okay.
that's covered.
So that indemnity remains intact,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
That's that second half.
Okay.
So I'm good with that.
Okay.
Well, and it would have to be pretty significant anyway, because they can spend up to $10,000 to fix anything without coming before us.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
See, that actually, we would carry insurance, OMAG would cover that,
Right.
because that's the structure. It would be only if there was some sort of negligence, I mean willful negligence or something, we would have an issue with it. And OMAG's probably not going to be good about that. I'm comfortable with the way it's written.
Anything else? Anybody else? You're-
No,
you act
I'm just
you
like,
were finished
I'm
now.
I'm hoping somebody wrote it all down, like you said.
I got it.
Did you-
It's in the gold folder. It's gold.
So are you gonna read the motion for us that we have to
Oh,
approve?
mercy.
I mean, not stepping on your toes, I think you should make him read it. You wrote it?
I was just spotting down.
But then you read it, you read a motion like you would normally. Because I can't remember all that stuff. So what he said.
So you have the portion on the indemnification fix we need to make, right? Okay, and then you have the corrections to the GIII about the reimbursement of any out-of-pocket language.
Yes.
And then you have the change on the waiver of subrogation to be added to the insurance portion for the workers' comp?
Yes, on 5 of 13, section EI.
Okay, does anybody else remember anything else? Those are the three big ones.
Hold on, I'm checking.
We got this,
I mean, she's got colors over
this
here
fee,
probably.
did we fix this fee? Would you mention that? The reimbursement, you did mention that,
Yeah, I
okay.
just mentioned that, yeah.
Did you just say the waiver of subrogation?
I did.
And then you
There's
said,
really three big ones, I think, that.
You can just call attention to the particular paragraphs that have been amended and subject to the revisions that we agreed upon, and that will be effective after both parties review it, after we modify it, and it will be effective.
And
upon signature.
Steve Bragg can go back and watch this meeting all over again if they think they can't remember it all.
Anything from you guys you think we missed? I don't want to be unfair to you guys and not let you, okay.
I think we're good. Again, I do need that insurance exhibit, but other than that, I've done that.
Brad, I think that, is that just a certificate of insurance that's just displayed in there
I've only
maybe?
seen one or two of those before, but you talking about the waiver of subrogation? or
No,
what?
just it, where it speaks of Exhibit B, I think he just wants to know what that Exhibit B is. That's
I'm
all.
assuming it's the standard insurance that we have with every.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
No, but it's your requirement of insurance, so
It's
but
a,
my assumption was.
it's an
the same.
exhibit that we're going to list the things that
Oh.
they must cover for their
Yeah, we'll have
insurance.
to-
insurance.
We've got them, I'm trying to remember the last one, I think I've got that one, I apologize that it's not on that, but they're all different.
All the drafts are different, yes.
Yeah, but we're talking about, this is a whole different deal, but you're talking about the GO insurance.
GO and the
The
workers' comp.
employment, all
Yes.
that, yeah.
Yep.
I can get that to you.
Before he signs it.
Okay.
So that goes into the,
Put that in
And
your
the
list of
gold
things that need to
folder.
be supplied.
Okay, all right. I'll make the motion that Brad and you said and this whole meeting. You know, I make that motion, but I'm not gonna try to make up
Whatever's in the gold folder.
Yeah, whatever's in the gold folder and on the video and,
All right. So we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Jay.
Chris Anson,
yes.
Trace Connor,
Yes.
Jolene Doucette, Larry Church,
Yes.
Scott Rossman,
Yes.
Dana Miller,
yes.
Corey Crabtree.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. And just from all of us, we appreciate you guys coming. We
Thank
requested
you.
that. We appreciate you doing that. We also appreciate your patience because you missed some of these. We
why
haven't
did you
been a
point
part
at
of it.
me?
I said some.
Not at all, man.
Us are not familiar with how some of these places run, so it's a great, I didn't point at you.
See-
You literally went like this.
He was saying us, but only with one hand, but only with one hand.
It's
Need a
because you
motion for
asked the most
adjournment.
questions.
Motion for adjournment.
Oh, wait a minute, I thought there was an addendum to, for something.
No,
That's another meeting.
That's another meeting. Yeah, that's another meeting. Yeah.
We've got a
I thought it was
2-hour executive session I want to take you through. No, I'm joking.
This meeting.
No, 4 o'clock in the morning comes early, right?
Oh, okay, never mind, you're not talking, it's this meeting, but not this meeting.
Right.
I second his adjournment.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Last night. Okay. Thank you, guys. Free to stay around for another session if you want to, but I
If you'd like to join us.
think you probably want to get home. Thank you,
Welcome to
guys.
Seminole. Can't wait to get started with you guys.
I know.
Exciting.
Thank you, guys. Do well this side. All right.
Thanks, guys.
I'm going to go ahead and call to order this meeting. Can we have it for the city council special meeting? Can we get a roll call for this one, please?
Trace Connor,
Here?
Dana Miller,
Here.
Larry Church,
Here.
Scott Rossman,
Here.
Chris Anson,
Here?
Jolene Doucette,
Here.
Jeff Nance, John Kramer, Corey Crabtree.
Here.
Well, quorum.
All right. Where are you going?
Let's get some water.
Okay, just making sure. All right, under current business, item 1, consideration and action to approve payment of an invoice from RCL Development of the Seminole, RCL Development of Seminole in the amount of $49,000 from the proceeds of tax increment finance district number 2.
Okay, so just to give you a refresher, the city of Seminole created a tax increment finance district for the new town center, which includes where Henson Burgers, Pizza Hut, hotel, and the housing behind it. And so the increment district allows the county to collect anything that over and above what they were paying property tax for the pasture. If a house comes out and it increases the property taxes, those taxes go into a pot of money called the increment district. That money comes from the county to Jay, and it goes into a tax increment number 2 account. The plan, which is about this thick, the tax increment plan is geared to allow the developer to be reimbursed for streets, the electric, anything that he spends on sewer and water to expand that addition to the city of Seminole is eligible to be reimbursed out of the increment district. So in this case, he sent us invoices, and one in particular for $49,000. I think so far, there's only like $52,000 that has been collected, because it takes a long time for anything that has property tax to be gathered, assessed, and get on the rolls. So in truth, we're probably about a year behind in getting everything assessed out there. I think there were only 7 homes on this assessment. So, yeah. So, yeah, we missed a lot.
Is this 1 year with the collection?
Yeah.
There's that 49,000?
Yeah, that's unfortunate, but we couldn't, as far as I know, nobody filed to run for county assessor, so we're kind of in limbo. So, any case, that's aside from the fact that we have a $49,000 invoice. We have money in the TIF account. The TIF agreement allows for us to pay the developer for what he has done out there. So I would recommend that you do approve this.
Just for clarity, we're paying the developer, not the builders.
Not the builder. This is the
We've had
developer
issues
that
with-
put in the streets and
Just for
the,
public clarification, so no one can come back and say, why did we give them money when they
yeah, no,
can't finish a hotel? So
no, that's not
Okay,
the same
just wanna
guy.
make sure.
There's a developer that put in the street, sewer, and water, and then there's a
Correct.
builder that has done other things out there.
Okay, just want to make that public, so no one
Mhm.
can ask questions, so.
Motion to approve.
All right, Jay?
Trace Connor,
Yes.
Anna Miller,
Yes.
Larry Church,
Yes.
Scott Rossman.
Yes.
Chris Anson,
Yes.
Jolene Doucette.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, we have no other items on the agenda, so I'll entertain a motion for adjournment. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Any opposed?